nothing but the dog in me. Why must I chase the cat?
Good evening and welcome to Posse Presents. Tonight we're kind of happy because we got our time slots again. Speedo and I both remain in our time slots for the next season. Me, of course, at 7 o'clock on a Saturday, Speedo at 8. It's always a beautiful thing. Couple of weekends we won't be here, though, because the studio is closed for the holiday. There will be no programming here at Sky 13 on December 26th, which is that Christmas, after Christmas Saturday, and January 2nd, which is the after New Year's Saturday. So we're going to have a couple of weeks of no shows, which is a mixed blessing. It's kind of going to be nice to have a 3-day weekend. I mean, there's withdrawals, yeah. You know, I mean, obviously Christmas is Friday and New Year's Day is Friday, so that's going to be a 3-day weekend from work. But then there'll be nothing happening on Saturday night, which, I don't know, again, it's a mixed blessing because I could see myself like home for the entire weekend, both weekends, because I don't make plans for the holidays. So, yeah, maybe hunker down for 2 weekends. It's, you know, I know it's not your lifestyle, but it could be mine. I'd enjoy it, trust me. Close the door, block the world out. Yeah, Zach's in there, yay! I'm good. Except I could see it now. Zach will be like walking to my house. Hey, can I just share some peace and quiet? Can I come hang out with you and the dogs? Yeah, okay, whatever. But anyway, that's what we're looking forward to coming up. And next weekend, a young lady who will be joining me, she's supposed to be joining me, who we haven't seen in a while. I'm going to keep that to myself. But also part of the plan for next weekend is I'd like to show your Christmas pictures of your pets. So if you've got any, you can email them to me at pawprints713@aol.com. That's PAWPRINTS 713@aol.com. Just put pet picture in the subject so I know what it is if I don't recognize your email address. You can post them on the Posse Presents Facebook page, or message them to me through Posse Presents, however you want to do it. And I will be posting on Facebook asking for your pictures, so you can post them in the thread as well. We did that last year, and I remember there was like a last-minute share. I did put a cutoff time because I know myself, and I know getting ready for the show, I mean, I need like to get off the computer and step away from Facebook and all that and dedicate myself to getting out the door. There was a last-minute share that was beyond the deadline, and right up until the time I left the house, I was like, you know, oh my God, there's another picture. Oh my God, and I'm like, you know, putting the flash drive back in and trying to download them, and it was a little hectic. And then I missed a couple. I mislabeled something because I was in a rush, so I kind of, it was the Christmas, do you remember, it was like, there was like 3 weekends where I was trying to make up to people the ones that I messed up, and yeah, I felt really bad. But we'll try to get it more under control this year. So by all means, like I said, if you've got, you know, your cute pictures of your pets all ready for Christmas, if you've done like the pet pictures with Santa, I'm going to put them up on the air. So they'll be up live, obviously, when the show airs, and they'll be on YouTube, and you can, you know, for all it's worth, share them with your friends. So I'm going to have a little conversation, probably mostly with myself tonight. I don't know. Zach is laughing again. But, you know, there are sometimes topics that I have in my mind that I can cover, thoughts that I want to put out there, opinions that I have, and it's not always the right time, so I kind of keep them in my little arsenal of things that I can do. And tonight seems to be the perfect night for me to address the fact that in spite of what other people may or may not think, and in spite of how people perceive rescue and rescuers. It's not a warm and fuzzy place. It's not full of people who agree. It's not full of people who get along or see eye to eye, or who are even in it for the right reasons. Now, I know I say that a lot of times, there's good rescues and bad rescues, and, that is true. But, from the actions and the intentions of some of the biggest and most recognizable names out there, like Humane Society of the United States, ASPCA, PETA, to the smallest rescues you can possibly find. Things aren't always what they'd appear to be on a lot of levels. And it's disturbing. The big three are in favor of killing domestic animals. They, don't have a no-kill policy. They court you with commercials and stories and, pleas for your money and your support. But they're mostly salaried individuals, and they're really concerned, for the most part, with their bottom line. And you can Google that. If you Google those three, your donations that they beg you for don't necessarily all go to help the animals. I've always said PETA is great if you're, a farm animal or a circus animal, but not if you're a pet. It's disturbing. The municipalities, the pounds, they're a mixed bunch full of good guys and bad guys. They are mostly kill facilities. And, if they're lucky enough to have volunteers, public support, and maybe rescue affiliations, the animals stand a better chance. And that chance would be for living long enough to be adopted. There are not many municipalities or pounds or whatever you want to call them that are no-kill facilities. They kill for space. They have limited time for any animal to be there. And it's difficult. It's very difficult. The real drama occurs between the local rescues. Not every rescue sees things the same, does things the same, nor does every rescuer. There are rescues, there are independent rescuers, and everybody's got their own ideas of how to do things and what's right and what's wrong. And there is no absolute wrong or right. There are guidelines, definitely a code of ethics that should be adhered to. And, the welfare of the animals should be the most important thing of all. Just because, Rescue A does things a little different than Rescue B doesn't make A or B wrong. Unless the animals are not being cared for or the animals are at any kind of risk. When people get caught up in the politics and often the self-absorbed process of hating on and bashing other rescues, the animals suffer. So if Rescue A doesn't agree with Rescue B and, everybody's trash talking and undermining, it's the animals that suffer because people get caught up in the people part of it. And there's a time and a place for airing dirty laundry. There's a time and a place for trying to take another rescue down. I've seen many fly-by-nights pop up, taking in animals that they can't properly care for, appealing to the public for money to pull and vet animals, animals that come with vouchers for free spay and neuter and shots, and so really what do you need money for vetting for? They charge over-the-moon adoption fees, and eventually they run with the money. So there's a lot to be said about good and bad in rescue. And that's definitely bad, because I can't see where your heart was in it for the animals. I've seen rescues handing off animals at adoption events without ever knowing who the adopters are. You know, oh, you want this pet? Okay, here. You know, no adoption process, no application, no checking references. Just, you know, hey, you know, got your money? Okay, here's your pet. And then what happens to the animal? Where's the safety net that a rescue is supposed to provide for the animal when you're just going to do something like that? That's just unthinkable to me, that you would put an animal at risk like that. Just the same way that any individual would save a pet, pull it from the pound, take it off of Craigslist, take it from somebody who's trying to dump their animal, and then just turn around and give it to anybody. And that kind of falls into pet flippers, which are those people who just, you know, take them in and turn them over and turn a profit and don't care what happens to the animals. You know, I've seen rescues fighting on social media, bashing each other, whether it's the rescue or individual rescuers, without a second thought. And, you know, again, just because you have a personal beef with somebody doesn't mean that you should put it out there so publicly. You know, if you don't like somebody, then stay away from them. You don't have to involve the welfare of the animals if they're being taken care of. You know, I'm talking about the personal drama between people. I'm not talking about whether a rescue is, you know, effective or good or you know, whatever. If you're going to air dirty laundry between people just because you don't like somebody, it's damaging to the animals, because people start to run and don't want to be involved. And the rescue that maybe isn't such a bad rescue loses support. And so what happens to the animals? You know, it's just, there's a lot better ways to go about things. And in my opinion, putting your reputation at stake and your credibility when it comes to your animals, what's going to happen? It's just not right. First and foremost, you know, you've got to consider the animals. And absolutely, if you see something, you should say something. But don't get caught up in the malicious, backstabbing, damaging drama. You know, especially if you don't have all the facts. And again, worse yet, if you just simply don't like the players. You know, there's plenty of things that I've been privy to. There's plenty of people that I'm not fond of. There's plenty of rescues or rescuers whose methods or practices I don't agree with. But I don't say that I can sit in judgment and say that, you know, they're not doing the best they can. If the animals, if you're not getting the feedback that the animals are in harm's way or not being placed well, then the personal stuff doesn't matter. You know, mind your business, stay out of their way. There's a lot I don't say. And there's been plenty of times, truthfully, where I've been a target of unfairness simply because I inquired about the welfare of animals that I advocated for. You know, I had a rescue come at me like it was unbelievable, but I don't put it out there. I've never publicly said a word about it. I'm not trying to undermine that rescue because of an incident I had with them. I can't judge how they run the rest of their organization. I had an incident with them over a particular case. What good is it going to do if they have the support and if they have the machine, so to speak, to do good for animals? for me to try to go in there and publicly bash them, unless there's any kind of evidence that their animals are consistently not cared for, if their animals are consistently at risk. Who am I? If it's personal, it should stay personal. You know, there are really, if you have any idea that there's something amiss with the way animals are being handled or treated, or, you know, if you know that, like, there's truly wrongdoing as far as the animals are concerned, that their health and their welfare are at stake, that's what the authorities are for. And, you know, putting stuff out there publicly, it's not doing them any good, and it's really not doing you any good, because then you look like an idiot. I mean, there's just no other way to put it. It's just, it's going off the deep end of bad taste to just publicly bash what you can't truly say you know fully anything about. You know, I've also seen people who give their all for all the right reasons. And those people are the ones that I take my hat off to, I applaud, I respect, and I admire. You know, there are people who dedicate their every waking moment to do what's best for the animals. And some of them run rescues, some of them volunteer at one or more rescue organization. And, you know, they're people I'm proud to know. You know, we all have our connections. We all connect differently with people. You know, again, rescue becomes sort of a personal preference as to who you support. And there's plenty of people out there who I do give my full support to, whether I've met them or not. You know, you end up being able to get a sense for what goes on. You get a sense for these people. And when you have met rescuers and people that belong to a rescue organization, it of course makes it more personal. You know, you have a stronger connection maybe. You know, you see how they do their thing, and you can make your alliances maybe with a little more confidence. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit, and I'm going to talk about Sweetpea Friends of Rutland Animals. If you've been following this show at all, you know about the fire. It was horrific, and the volunteers are still reeling, and I'm sure a lot of them haven't even been able to begin the grieving process. They're still in shock. They're still trying to rally. They're trying to come to terms with what happened. And, you know, they're watching the survivors as they try to heal. And that's been a difficult process, because some of them, you know, there was at least one kitty that didn't make it. There've been, you know, one that went home. Brooklyn Sky went to a home this week, and that was amazing news. You know, Stella went from the critical care facility that she was in to the regular vet, which means she's making strides, which is awesome. Da Vinci and Jade are holding their own. Bruin is healing. These volunteers are pouring their hearts and their souls into just trying to come to terms with stuff. They're trying to plan for the future. They're trying to figure out what their next step is going to be. They're trying to figure out how to make sure that something like this will never ever happen again. It was a tragedy, and you know, in the midst of this, there are people who are actively trying to tear them down, both figuratively and literally. There have been circulating reports and inspections, actual building inspections that were not favorable. You know, it was a very old building that they were in. There were flaws in the building, and that's a given. But, you know, these people, all right, so these inspection reports and the building reports, they must have some fact to them. Again, it was an old building, and nobody didn't know it was an old building. Nobody didn't know that, the place needed to be redone. Now, Sweetpea had just taken possession of the building and had plans. They had all kinds of plans to rebuild and to make it a better place for the animals. But that takes time. Again, they just took possession of the building. They were actively trying to raise the funds, which doesn't happen overnight, to put the renovations into motion, to make the building a better place for the animals. And, you got to give them credit for all of those efforts. They had the plans. No one could have predicted what happened, that there would be this tragedy. Now, the fact that there are people who are going to the newspapers and going on the news, pulling up these inspection reports and, bashing Sweetpea, people who've never been in the shelter, who really don't have any way of knowing how much the Sweetpea organization and the volunteers really cared about the animals that were there. They're just, for some reason, they're reading the black and white. And when you do that, yeah, there's facts, but you've got to read beyond the facts. Yes, like I said, it was an old building. What could possibly be your motive to try to make more of the situation than it already is? Yes, it's horrible. It's nobody's fault. When the building was inspected, it's not like they were closed down. It's not like the officials said, hey, get the animals out of here, and they didn't. So where and how anybody could take it upon themselves to go out there and bash an organization that's all heart is beyond me. It takes a lot to run a rescue. It takes a lot to take care of the animals. And I know personally that in spite of anything that was cited, the animals were taken wonderful care of. The people that run Sweetpea were in it for all the right reasons. The volunteers were in it for the right reasons. They loved those animals. They cared for those animals. And whether the building was old or had flaws, it was a safe haven for those animals. That was a place where those animals were loved and cared for. That was a place where, their futures were hoped for. Sweetpea is truly a no-kill shelter, which meant that, yeah, some of those animals were there for a while, but while they were there, they were loved, they were cared for, they were doted on. That's a lot more than a lot of other animals get, The shelter was a place where those animals were truly safe. And, whether anybody agrees with anything about Sweetpea, that's personal preference. But I happen to know, a lot of the people that are involved, and I know that you could see it in their faces at the events that they held, and just the way they poured themselves in there. There could not have been anything amiss at all in anything that they did, because they cared too much. You can't think that an entire group of people would be blind to wrongdoing that an entire group of people could be brainwashed and feeding into animals not being cared for, to anything being out of line, to anything not being done the way it should be done. I mean, I happen to know that they were pretty spot on and strict about their adoption process. They didn't play or entertain anybody who wasn't an adopter that was going to be a good fit for the animal. So, you know, the dedication to the well-being of those animals is complete. You know, I know that they'll rebuild. I know that the volunteers will stay strong, and that's how it's supposed to be. You know, to bash an organization, again, I don't know what the motives are. Maybe so that they can ruin it and, you know, try to make it so that Sweetpea can't rebuild, so that the attention falls on them and, you know, the donations pour into them and to make themselves look better. I don't know. I don't know how you justify trying to kick somebody when they're down, but it's really not it's really not a cool thing, you know? Everybody gets to pick who they want to support, and I just want to say that I'm still very much in support of Sweetpea. Again, I know the players, I see the good, and unless I see otherwise, I will remain Sweetpea strong. Zach, let's show them what that's all about. All right, so I guess we'll say goodnight now.
What about your dog?
Nope.
Okay. You want me to end on that?
Yep.
All right. See you tonight.
You gonna put the credits up?
Yeah.
Okay. Peace, love, and dogs. Once again, always Sweetpea strong. Good night, everybody.